Order. The question is that this bill be now read a second time. I call the honourable member for Wills.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The member for Solomon advised the House of some of the statistics regarding the take-up of social media and Facebook, use of the internet and the like by young people, which is one of the striking features of our times, just how rapid and dramatic that transformation has been. And there's no doubt that people have been doing that at the expense, to a considerable extent, of physical activity and outdoors activities. And I often think that no matter how digital the world gets, there is no substitute for being there and being out in the real world. And I hope that young people don't lose that appreciation of the outdoors and lose some of the benefits of physical and outdoors activity. I had a forum last week in my electorate of Wills at the Coburg Library, which was based around issues of concern to young people, and it had a very heavy focus on the impact of ice and other drugs, alcohol and various addictions. We talked about employment, homelessness, mental health issues, and covered a range of issues. And one of the things that was said was that in this day and age, people are losing the ability to communicate and using social media as a substitute for face-to-face and personal communications. And I think that was a point that was well made at the forum, and it is a significant point. We do need to try and protect and develop the capacity of young people to communicate in a face-to-face way. Deputy Speaker, the primary bill here establishes a Children's E-Safety Commissioner and sets out its functions and powers which relate to a defined prohibition against cyberbullying material targeted at an Australian child. A child or their representative can complain to the Commissioner that they are or have been the subject of cyberbullying material targeted at them. The Commissioner may investigate such complaints. The bill sets out an expectation of the Parliament that each social media service will comply with a set of basic online safety requirements. This includes minimum standards in a service provider's terms and conditions of use, a complaints scheme and a dedicated contact person. The bill creates two tiers of social media services. Tier 1 comprises social media services which have applied to the Commissioner to be declared as such, and the advantage of Tier 1 declaration is largely reputational. Social media services within Tier 1 may be requested by the Commissioner to remove material that has been the subject of a complaint as cyberbullying material targeted at an Australian child. By contrast, a Tier 2 social media service may be issued a social media service notice by the Commissioner which requires the removal of such material. The Commissioner also has the power to issue notices to end users who post cyberbullying material, which can include a requirement for them to remove that material. The remedy for non-compliance with such a notice is injunctive relief. If a social media service fails to comply with the basic online safety requirements, a request to remove subject material or a social media service notice, then the Commissioner may make a statement to that effect, publish it on its website, and civil penalty provisions arise in relation to non-compliance with a social media service notice, that's to say 100 penalty units or $17,000. The Commissioner has other functions, including the promotion of children's online safety and to coordinate the activities of other departments relating to this. Now, Deputy Speaker, there are laws in every state and territory which cover all forms of bullying, and this bill backs up those laws for the digital age. Labor established the Joint Select Committee on Cyber Safety in 2010 as part of its commitment to investigate and improve cyber safety measures. The committee released its interim report, High Wire Act, Cyber Safety and the Young, in June 2011, which contained 32 recommendations, central themes being a focus on education and a multifaceted approach involving schools, families, communities, and Labor and Government endorsed and responded to these recommendations. Labor has consistently called for detailed industry and community consultation on these proposals. We facilitated community input on the legislation by referring the bill to a Senate committee, and Labor is conscious of the concerns raised in some parts of the sector about whether this legislation will work Nevertheless, when we're talking about protecting our kids from online bullies, it is worth giving it a go. Now, for some time now, I've been an ambassador for the Bully Zero Australia Foundation, and I'm aware of the importance of the issues being covered by this legislation, and I welcome the establishment of the Children's E-Safety Commissioner. Deputy Speaker, the Bully Zero Australia Foundation was established after the suicides of Alem Halkic, Olivia Penpraise, Sarah Walker and Shenez Erkan. All 4 teenagers were cyberbullied. As an ambassador, I was involved from the inception and attended the inaugural meeting. The foundation was launched by then Prime Minister Julia Gillard, and I strongly support the development of this progressive organisation. More recently, the Victorian Government Minister Natalie Hutchins and I launched the Bully Zero hotline. This hotline has answered more than 3,000 phone calls, including successfully resolving 21 calls involving a potential suicide. Bully Zero responds to all forms of bullying via its dedicated national 24/7 hotline 1800 0 bully or 1800 028 559. This hotline is funded by Oracle CMS and the Foundation. Calls consist of a range of bullying-related situations, but in particular cyberbullying. I should add, Deputy Speaker, that adults are not immune to cyberbullying and the impacts can also be severe and damaging. The organisation offers schools, sporting clubs and community groups free cyber safety sessions using the funds of donors and of a charity ball held yearly. This organisation has sought federal and state funding. To date, it's only received $71,000 from the Victorian State Government. The Foundation Chief Executive Officer, Oscar Yildiz, and his team work tirelessly to ensure Australians live fulfilling lives free from all forms of bullying, and I commend the Foundation and the 76 or more volunteers who give up their time to genuinely make a difference. Currently, there are stalking laws that deal with bullying in all states and in Victoria. Serious bullying is now a crime punishable by up to 10 years jail. The Federal Crimes Legislation Amendment to the Telecommunications Offences and Other Measures Act back in 2004 covers the use of a carriageway. So, in essence, a person is guilty if they use a carriage service like an internet or phone to menace, harass or cause offence, for example by sexting or trolling or cyberbullying. The penalty is up to 3 years imprisonment. Threats to do serious harm carry up to 7 years imprisonment, and threats to kill 10 years if made over a carriage service. In all circumstances, it must be proved that the perpetrator intended the victim to fear that the offence would be carried out. The Bully Zero Australian Foundation CEO Oscar Yildiz has said, "It's fantastic to see that the Commissioner will have the power to issue notices to end users who post inappropriate material or engage in cyberbullying. Removal of such material by the Commissioner will further enhance policing and enforcement. I commend the Commissioner who will also have the ability to apply non-compliance notices. We look forward to further consultation and will support the Commissioner to ensure that our children are safe on and offline." Deputy Speaker, the prevalence of cyberbullying has rapidly increased since it first emerged. This is probably a result of increasing numbers of children and young people having access to the internet and to smartphones and their increasing propensity to use online methods to communicate. Other factors could also be influencing changes in prevalence, including the perception that cyberbullying is more difficult to detect and that bullies are less likely to face consequences for cyberbullying. What is not known, however, is whether this pattern is still continuing or whether it will continue to increase, stabilise or decrease. Internationally and in Australia, there is significant harm associated with cyberbullying. Several studies have ascertained that it is more than just hurtful name-calling, but can lead to serious psychosocial and life problems. Some studies indicate that cyberbullying can have more serious effects than traditional bullying because it is more likely to involve more exposure and humiliation, can last longer and is more difficult to escape from. The Australian Medical Association recognises that cyberbullying among children and young people is a significant health and welfare issue. Research about the impacts of cyberbullying suggests that the long-term impacts of cyberbullying are serious. It can have lasting effects on individuals and their families, including self-esteem, mental health, depression, anxiety and suicidal ideation. The AMA supports the establishment of a Children's eSafety Commissioner to take a national leadership role in online safety for children, promote online safety by coordinating relevant government activities, support, conduct, accredit and evaluate education and community awareness programs about online safety, to deal with persons who post cyberbullying material targeting an Australian child, and to work with large social media providers to remove harmful content aimed at a child within 48 hours of a request from the Commissioner. Bullying peaks in years 7 to 10 and hurtful teasing is reported as the most common behaviour, followed by lies. Whilst bullying has always been a scourge on our young people, today bullying does not simply stop at the school gate. It hounds our children from the classroom to their homes via computer screens and mobile devices. When telecommunications were less ubiquitous, the home could represent a safety zone for adolescents where they could switch off their school identities. But kids who come home and look up their Facebook pages face the same problem. The bullies who taunt you in school hallways can be there again the moment you go into your bedroom and turn on your computer. The evolution of technology has forever changed the way we're all connected, and our nation's young people have seized this opportunity with relish. But with these opportunities have come risks, and through the advent of social media, many of our children are enduring relentless harassment and anguish in the supposed sanctuary of our homes. Social media has brought people together, but it has torn others apart. Character assassination on Twitter is rife, as are malicious emails, texts and other forms of e-torment. A recent review of the academic literature on cyberbullying suggests that at least a quarter of school-aged children are involved as either a victim or a perpetrator. According to The Economist, the new generation of smartphone apps is unlikely to help. And I quote, "With names like Whisper, Secret, Yik Yak, Confide and Sneaky, they enable users to send anonymous messages, images or both, to friends who also use the apps. Some of the messages self-destruct after delivery, some live on. But at their heart is anonymity. If you're bullied via Facebook, Twitter or text, you can usually identify your attacker. As a victim of an anonymous messaging app, you cannot. At best, you can only guess which friend, in quotes, whispered to the online world that you might be pregnant. Anonymity frees people from traditionally constraining pressures of society, conscience, morality and ethics to behave in a normative manner. The app companies claim they have or are working on ways to deter slanderous or abusive posts. Secret says it removes such posts, although that rarely seems to happen quickly or consistently. And after hosting posts that have included multiple shooting and bomb threats, some of which led to school evacuations, Yik Yak is now using geofencing technology to prevent its app being used at a majority of America's middle and high schools. That will do little, however, to affect its use outside school hours or at universities, which Yik Yak is still targeting. Deputy Speaker, the hidden nature of cyberbullying has meant that perpetrators are thriving on incessantly tormenting their victims without fear of reprisal. Research shows most cyberbullying takes place on social media and social media platforms can be slow to remove hurtful or abusive posts, and therefore that exacerbates its devastating consequences. We must do all we can to tackle this scourge, and for that reason the opposition is supporting this legislation. We have to do everything that we can to prevent and stop the bullying of young people, and we hope that this legislation achieves those aims. But as Jennifer Duxbury said in an article in The Age last year, and I quote, "For my parents' generation, thoughtfulness and respect for others' feelings were just plain good manners. In the digital age, we are losing the habit of civility. Abrupt text, caustic tweets, celebrity bashing, ritual humiliation of contestants on reality TV, shares of denigrating slogans overlaid on images of politicians. These are routine expressions of a lack of empathy in our communications. It is tempting to shift accountability for what happens on social media onto the platforms and the government and away from ordinary people. At some point, we need to accept personal responsibility for scripting our conversations.
Order. The question is that this bill be now read a second time. I call the honourable member for Leichhardt.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. As elected officials, we know what it's like to receive hate mail, threats and other verbal vitriol. It certainly hurts, and it could be from people we know in the community or strangers from another part of the country. It might be sparked by something that we've said or something that we've done, but the attacks can be personal, targeting how we look, what we wear and how we talk. But we're adults and we know that there are ways to deal with this and find ways of support to get through. Unfortunately, our children don't have that experience, and so they need our protection as parents, as politicians and as a country to protect them from bullying. It's never been a simple task, but in a world before internet, kids could escape bullying, even if it was just for a while in the safety of their own home. Unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. Our communication has moved from writing letters by hand to asking Siri or Cortana to send a text on our behalf. We've gone from passive TV watching to actively engaging in real time with our favourite shows, and we've gone from bullying being limited within the schoolyard to bullying continue as long as we are within reach of the internet. We made election promise to the children of Australia that we would act to better protect them from cyberbullying and to make our online world more safer. It's a promise that I, as the father of an 8-year-old girl, hold very highly, because I will do everything possible to protect her from any form of bullying, online or in the real world. This Enhancing Online Safety for Children Bill 2014 is delivering our promise to kids. 1 in 5 Australian children are victims of cyberbullying. Kent State High School Guidance Officer Annie Jarrett told our local paper that she was dismayed by the number of young people who present with depression and anxiety symptoms at school. Sometimes their symptoms are so severe that they're unable to engage and learn. She said that due to mobile phones and the internet, young people are at risk of no longer having a private life. From my perspective as the chair of the Parliamentary Friendship Group for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual and intersex Australians, I see and hear about the extent of bullying against young LGBTI people. In fact, you may remember in the early